Alexander Reid had everything money could buy, but nothing that truly mattered. The tech billionaire's life consisted of boardrooms, private jets, and empty penthouses. That Tuesday morning was supposed to be ordinary, another dash through Grand Central Station to avoid the press. But fate had other plans. Two small voices, harmonizing a hauntingly familiar lullaby, stopped him mid-stride. Twin girls, no older than 7, their worn clothes betraying a life of struggle. Alexander knelt, mesmerized by their song, when one child pressed a tattered photograph into his trembling hand. The face staring back at him made his heart stop. Sarah, his wife, who had supposedly perished in that yacht explosion 5 years ago. Could she really be alive after all this time? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The 64th floor of the Reid Tech Tower offered a view of Manhattan that most people only saw in movies. Alexander Reid stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city glitter below like a circuit board of light and shadow. In his reflection, he saw a man he barely recognized anymore, impeccably tailored suit, silver-streaked hair, eyes that had forgotten how to smile. On his desk sat a glass award, catching the morning light. "Innovator of the Decade," it proclaimed. Alexander picked it up, feeling its substantial weight. Another trophy for accomplishments that suddenly seemed hollow. "The board is waiting, sir," said Victor Chen from the doorway. Tall, precise, and unfailingly loyal for 15 years, Victor was the closest thing Alexander had to a friend. "Let them wait," Alexander replied, still staring at the photograph. In his hand, the image was worn at the edges, but Sarah's smile remained vibrant, the same smile that had vanished from his life 5 years ago. Victor approached cautiously. "Those children from the subway, you think they're connected to her?" Alexander slipped the photograph into his jacket pocket. "They were singing our song, Victor, the lullaby Sarah composed when we first talked about having children." His voice cracked slightly. "Children we never had." The boardroom fell silent. When Alexander entered, 8 executives in expensive suits, all eyeing him with varying degrees of concern and curiosity. Garrett Morgan, head of product development, spoke first. "Alexander, we were discussing the quantum encryption protocol. The engineers need your final approval." The irony wasn't lost on Alexander. The QEP had been Sarah's brainchild, a revolutionary security system that had made Reid Tech the leading cybersecurity company in the world. After her death, he had buried himself in completing her work, as if finishing what she started might somehow bring closure. "I'll review it this afternoon," Alexander said, taking his seat at the head of the table. As the meeting droned on, his mind drifted back to the beginning. 20 years ago, he was just a coding prodigy with big dreams, meeting a brilliant mathematician named Sarah Jenkins at MIT. Together, they had built Reid Tech from a dorm room startup into a tech empire. They were partners in every sense. Until that yacht explosion in the Mediterranean claimed her life while she was on a business trip, or so he had believed. That night, Alexander sat alone in his penthouse, bourbon in hand, the city lights creating a halo around the photograph on the coffee table. Sarah's parents hadn't spoken to him since the funeral. They blamed him for the business trip, for putting work before family. Perhaps they were right. He accessed the company archives on his tablet, searching for anything related to the yacht incident. The official investigation had ruled it an accident, a fuel line malfunction. Yet, something had always felt wrong about it. His phone buzzed with a text from Victor. "Security footage from the subway station acquired, sending now." Alexander watched the grainy video, his heart pounding as he saw himself kneeling before the twins. Their faces were partially obscured, but there was something in their features, in the way they moved, that seemed hauntingly familiar. He made a decision then. Tomorrow he would return to that subway station. If there was even the slightest chance that Sarah was alive, that those children knew something, he had to find out. For 5 years, he had been a ghost walking through his own life. Now, for the first time since losing her, Alexander Reid felt something stir within him again. It felt like hope. Grand Central Station hummed with the perpetual motion of New York. Thousands of lives intersecting briefly before continuing on their separate journeys. Alexander descended the stairs to the lower concourse, his casual attire a stark contrast to yesterday's executive armor. A baseball cap pulled low helped mask his recognizable face. "They're usually by the East Passage around this time," said a raspy voice. Alexander turned to find an elderly woman arranging pastries at a small kiosk. Her weathered hands moved with practiced efficiency. "The little songbirds," she clarified. "That's who you're looking for, isn't it? Saw you with them yesterday." "Yes," Alexander admitted. "Do you know them?" "Lily and Rose," the woman said, her eyes crinkling. "Been singing here about 6 months now. I'm Ellie." She extended a hand that Alexander shook gently. "They brighten this old dungeon. Their guardian brings them most afternoons." Alexander thanked her and continued toward the East Passage. The familiar melody reached him before he saw them. 2 small figures in matching blue dresses, their dark hair braided identically. A small crowd had gathered, dropping coins into a decorated tin can. He watched from a distance, studying their faces. They were perhaps 7 years old, with delicate features that carried an echo of Sarah. Could they really be connected to her? The possibility made his heart race. As the crowd dispersed, Alexander approached. The girls looked up warily. "Hello again," he said softly, kneeling to their level. "I'm Alexander." They exchanged glances. "I'm Lily," said one. "This is Rose." "You sing beautifully," Alexander said. "That song, where did you learn it?" Rose clutched something to her chest, a wooden box with intricate carvings. "Mama taught us." "May I?" Alexander gestured to the box. After a hesitant moment, Rose handed it over. The craftsmanship was exquisite. Hand-carved maple with floral designs. Alexander turned it gently, finding a small key mechanism on the side. When wound, it played the same lullaby the girls had been singing, the melody Sarah had composed. "Your mother gave you this." His voice barely concealed his emotion. Lily nodded. "For our birthday. She said it would always remind us of home." Alexander ran his fingers over the box, feeling something unusual in its construction. "There seems to be a hidden compartment here. Miss Flores doesn't let us open it," Rose said. "Says it's not time yet. Miss Flores is your guardian. Since Mama had to go away," Lily explained, "she takes care of us." "And your father?" Alexander asked carefully. The girls looked at each other again, a silent communication passing between them. "Mama says he's a hero," Rose finally offered, "but he doesn't know about us." "He builds things that help people," Lily added. "Like robots and computers." Alexander's breath caught in his throat. Before he could respond, a sharp voice cut through the conversation. "Girls, what have I told you about talking to strangers?" A middle-aged woman with stern features approached. Rapidly, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. She placed protective hands on the twins' shoulders. "Miss Flores, he's nice," Lily protested. "He likes our song." "I apologize if I overstepped," Alexander said, rising to his feet. "The girls are very talented." Miss Flores studied him intensely. "You're him, aren't you?" "Alexander Reid." He nodded, surprised at being recognized despite his disguise. "We need to go," she said firmly, gathering the girls' belongings. "It's not safe." "Wait," Alexander said, pulling out a business card. "I'd like to help the girls. Perhaps a music program." "We don't need your charity, Mr. Reid," Miss Flores interrupted, but took the card nonetheless. "Come, girls." As they walked away, Rose looked back and waved. Alexander noticed a small tear in her dress, a family clearly struggling financially. Yet they had a handmade music box that played Sarah's lullaby, a melody known only to them. Coincidence was impossible. Alexander watched them disappear into the crowd, more certain than ever that he had found a thread leading back to Sarah, and perhaps to secrets he wasn't prepared to face. Alexander followed Miss Flores and the twins at a discreet distance. They boarded a bus heading toward Queens, and he followed in a taxi, maintaining enough space to avoid detection. The vehicle stopped near a modest apartment complex in Astoria, far from the luxury high-rises of Manhattan. He waited until evening before approaching the building. Security was minimal. A simple intercom system guarded the entrance. Alexander pressed the button for apartment 3B. "Who is it?" Miss Flores's voice crackled through the speaker. "Alexander Reid. We need to talk." A long pause followed before the door buzzed open. 3 flights of stairs led to a narrow hallway where Miss Flores waited, arms crossed defensively. "The girls are asleep," she said. "Keep your voice down." The apartment was small but tidy, worn furniture arranged with care, children's drawings taped to the refrigerator. On a bookshelf sat a stack of weathered newspaper clippings, partially hidden behind framed photographs. "You know who I am," Alexander stated. "And you know Sarah." Miss Flores's expression hardened. "I knew Sarah. Everyone thinks she's dead." "Except you," he countered. "And me, as of yesterday." She gestured toward a small kitchen table. "Sit, I'll make coffee." Alexander moved to the bookshelf, examining the newspaper clippings while Ms. Flores busied herself with the coffee. Headlines jumped out at him. "Tech mogul's wife presumed dead in yacht explosion." "Search for Sarah Reid called off." "Reid tech stocks tumble amid tragedy." His own face, 5 years younger, stared back from the pages, shell-shocked at a press conference, hollow-eyed at the memorial service. "You've been following the story," he observed, as Miss Flores set 2 mugs on the table. "I kept them for Sarah," she admitted, "to help her understand what happened after. So she is alive." His voice broke slightly. Miss Flores sighed. "I don't know anymore. I haven't seen her in over 2 years. The coffee grew cold as she explained. She and Sarah had been friends in college before Alexander. They'd reconnected when Sarah needed help, desperate, frightened, and pregnant with twins. "She said people were after her research," Miss Flores continued, "that she had to disappear to protect everyone, including you." Alexander closed his eyes, memories washing over him. Their last conversation had been an argument. Sarah wanted to delay presenting the encryption protocol, saying it wasn't ready. He had pushed, citing investor pressure. 3 days later, her yacht exploded in the Mediterranean. "Why didn't she come to me?" he asked. "She said it would put you in danger." "That people inside your company couldn't be trusted." Alexander thought of the board members, wondering which of them might have wanted Sarah's research badly enough to orchestrate her death. "The girls," he said suddenly. "Are they—" Ms. Flores nodded slowly. "They were born 7 months after. Sarah disappeared. She stayed with me until they were 4, then said it wasn't safe anymore. She left them in my care, promising to return when she could." Alexander's world tilted on its axis. Twins, his daughters, children he never knew existed. Before he could process this revelation, his phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Stop looking if you want them safe." He showed the screen to Ms. Flores, whose face paled. "They're watching," she whispered. "They've always been watching." Alexander moved to the window, scanning the street below. A black sedan was parked across the road, its occupants invisible. Behind tinted windows, "Pack some things for the girls," he said with sudden resolve. "You're not staying here tonight." As Ms. Flores hurried to gather essentials, Alexander slipped the newspaper clippings into his jacket. Whatever conspiracy had taken Sarah from him, had kept him from knowing his own children, was still active, and now they knew he was looking. Dawn broke over the city as Alexander's private car pulled into the underground garage of his Manhattan penthouse. Ms. Flores and the twins, still drowsy from being woken in the night, followed him into the private elevator. "You'll be safe here," Alexander assured them, directing them to guest rooms with a view of Central Park. "The security is state-of-the-art." While Ms. Flores settled the girls, Alexander retreated to his home office. Sleep was impossible. His daughters, the very thought sent a tremor through his hands. The resemblance to Sarah was unmistakable now that he knew to look for it. He removed the newspaper clippings from his jacket, spreading them across his desk. 5 years of believing. A lie. 5 years of mourning while Sarah was alive, raising their children without him. The betrayal and longing twisted inside him like twin serpents. 3 hours later, Alexander entered Reid Tech Tower through a service entrance, avoiding the usual morning greetings. He needed answers, and the trail began here. "You look terrible," Victor commented, finding Alexander in his private server room rather than his office. "Security reported you didn't go home last night." Alexander didn't look up from his terminal. "I need the archived files from Sarah's project, all of them, including the ones marked classified." Victor hesitated. "Those require board approval." "2 override codes," Alexander interrupted, sliding a paper across the desk. "Don't ask questions, Victor, not today." Left alone, Alexander delved into the encrypted archives of Sarah's final project. The quantum encryption protocol had made Reid Tech billions, but Sarah's original research went deeper than what had been implemented. Her notes mentioned applications beyond corporate security, potential military uses that she had ethical concerns. About a folder labeled "Personal" caught his attention. Inside were fragmented research logs, journal entries, and a series of encrypted files that resisted his attempts to open them. "You're here early," Alexander startled at the voice. Garrett. Morgan stood in the doorway, his artificial smile not reaching his eyes. As head of product development, Garrett had been instrumental in bringing the QEP to market after Sarah's death. "Just reviewing some historical data," Alexander replied carefully. Garrett approached, glancing at the screen. "Sarah's old files. Ancient history now. Sometimes the past offers insights for the future." "Indeed," Garrett's tone was measured. "The board is concerned about your recent distraction. The Singapore expansion needs your attention." "I'll review the proposals today," Alexander promised, closing the file browser. After Garrett left, Alexander texted his old friend from MIT, now a cybersecurity consultant. "Need help with encrypted files, completely off the record." They met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from Reid Tech Tower. Julian Wong had aged since their university days, his formerly wild hair now cropped short, glasses perched on his nose. "These encryption patterns," Julian said, examining the files on a secure laptop, "they're Sarah's work, but there's something unusual. Multiple layers, some of which seem designed to alert someone if they're opened incorrectly." "Can you break them?" Julian smiled. "Already did. The core files are on this drive." He slid a small USB across the table. "But Alexander, there's something else. I found traces of a backdoor in Reid Tech systems. Someone's been monitoring internal communications for years." Alexander's blood ran cold. "From inside the company?" "The access points originate from executive-level credentials." Back in his office, Alexander plugged in the USB drive with trembling fingers. Financial records appeared. Offshore transactions to shell companies, all tied to the dates surrounding Sarah's disappearance. One name appeared repeatedly in the authorization codes, G. Morgan.Garrett. The realization hit Alexander like a physical blow. His office door opened as Victor entered with coffee. "You asked for the quarterly reports." He stopped, noticing Alexander's expression. "What's wrong?" Before Alexander could answer, his secure phone buzzed with an alert from his building's security system. Someone was attempting to access his penthouse, where the twins were staying. "We need to go," he said, grabbing his coat. "Now!" The security alert proved to be a false alarm, a delivery person at the wrong apartment. But it reinforced Alexander's fears. The penthouse wasn't secure enough. Too many people knew where he lived. By nightfall, he had relocated Ms. Flores and the twins to a company-owned property in Brooklyn Heights that existed off the books. used occasionally for visiting executives who valued privacy. Victor handled the arrangements without questions, though his concerned glances spoke volumes. Over the next 3 days, Alexander established a routine. Mornings and evenings with the twins, building tentative bonds through shared meals and bedtime. Stories, daytime hours spent at Reid Tech, maintaining appearances while secretly investigating the conspiracy surrounding Sarah's disappearance. On the 4th day, he returned to Grand Central to speak with Ellie, the elderly vendor who seemed to know the twins well. "Those sweet girls," Ellie said, handing him a paper cup of tea. "Haven't seen them perform lately." "They're taking a break," Alexander replied carefully. "You mentioned they've been coming here for 6 months. Did you ever meet their mother?" Ellie's eyes narrowed slightly. "Why the interest, Mr. Bigshot?" "I'm trying to help them." She studied him before reaching beneath her counter. "Sarah was always kind to an old lady. Brought me soup when I had that terrible flu last winter." Alexander's heart skipped. "You know Sarah?" "Not as well as some." Ellie pressed something into his palm, a subway token, but unlike any in current circulation. It bore unusual markings. Etched into its surface, a lighthouse surrounded by waves. "What is this?" "Insurance," she replied cryptically, "for people who need to disappear. Show this at Riverside Station, Platform B, midnight. Ask for the conductor." "Who's the conductor?" Ellie shook her head. "Better you hear it from them. Just know there are people in this city, good people, who help others vanish when staying visible becomes dangerous." That night, Alexander left the twins in Miss Flores's care and took a circuitous route to Riverside Station, an aging subway stop in a neglected corner of the city. Platform B was deserted, save for a janitor mopping the grimy floor. Alexander approached, token in hand. "I'm looking for the conductor." The janitor barely glanced up. "Wrong station." "Ellie sent me," Alexander added, displaying the token. The janitor's demeanor shifted. He gestured toward a maintenance door. "Through there, they're expecting you." Beyond the door lay a network of maintenance tunnels illuminated by buzzing fluorescent lights. A slender woman with close-cropped silver hair waited at the first junction. "Mr. Reid," she said, her voice carrying a faint accent. "I'm Mia. Follow me." She led him through a labyrinth of passages until they reached what appeared to be an abandoned station platform repurposed as a command center. Computer monitors lined one wall, while maps of the city covered another. "Welcome to the underground," Mia said. "We help people disappear when remaining visible would cost them their lives." "You helped Sarah," Alexander stated. "We facilitated her transition to a new identity," Mia confirmed. "She came to us terrified, pregnant, and convinced powerful people wanted her research badly enough to kill for it." "Why didn't she come to me?" Mia's expression softened slightly. "She believed you were being watched too closely. That involving you would endanger you and the children she carried." Alexander showed her the USB drive. "I found evidence that my head of product development was involved." "Garrett Morgan," Mia nodded. "Sarah identified him as one of several Reid Tech executives compromised by Nexus Dynamics. Where is she now?" "I don't know," Mia admitted. "Our protocol is to facilitate disappearance, not maintain contact. It's safer that way." "The twins know a song," Alexander said, remembering. "The music box. It has coded lyrics." Mia smiled. "Sarah was clever. The song might contain her location or instructions for contacting her." "I need to find her before they do," Alexander said, determination hardening his voice. "We'll help," Mia promised. "But understand, this network exists because powerful people do terrible things to protect their interests. The deeper you dig, the more dangerous it becomes." Alexander clutched the subway token, its edges pressing into his palm. "They've already taken 5 years from me. I won't let them take my family." Alexander arranged a discreet meeting with Elizabeth Chen, a former Reid Tech board member who had resigned abruptly 3 months after Sarah's disappearance. They met at her upstate horse farm, far from corporate surveillance. I wondered when. You'd finally come, Elizabeth said, pouring tea in her sun-drenched kitchen. At 65, she remained sharp-eyed and formidable. You found something. Sarah's alive, Alexander replied, watching her reaction carefully. And I have 2 daughters I never knew about. Elizabeth closed her eyes briefly. Thank God. I feared the worst when she vanished after contacting me. She reached out to you 2 days before the yacht explosion. She discovered something alarming about the encryption protocol, military applications that weren't in the original design. Elizabeth retrieved a small wooden box from a drawer. She gave me this for safekeeping, said I'd know when to pass it on. Inside the box lay what appeared to be a computer chip, smaller than a postage stamp, the original prototype, Elizabeth explained. Sarah's true innovation, what everyone has been hunting for. Alexander examined the tiny device. What makes it so valuable? It doesn't just encrypt data, it can decrypt anything, universal access. In the right hands, it could protect vulnerable systems worldwide. In the wrong hands, digital skeleton key, Alexander murmured. Every security system, government database, financial network, all accessible. Sarah realized too late that certain board members were negotiating with Nexus Dynamics to sell the technology to the highest bidder, governments, private military contractors, anyone willing to pay. Garrett Morgan, Elizabeth nodded, and others. When Sarah threatened to destroy her research rather than see it weaponized, they took action. They tried to kill her, Alexander said, anger rising in his throat. They staged her death, then discovered she'd hidden the only working prototype. They've been hunting her ever since. Alexander's phone buzzed, a text from Victor. Morgan accessing your private server. Return immediately. I need to go, Alexander said, pocketing the prototype. They're making a move. Back at Reid Tech Tower, Alexander found Garrett in his office, looking uncharacteristically flustered. Alexander, I was just checking on the Singapore projections, Garrett explained, his smile too wide. On my private server, curious place to look for them. Garrett's expression hardened. We've been friends for 15 years. Don't throw accusations around lightly. Friends don't steal research. Friends don't conspire with rival companies. Alexander stepped closer. Friends don't try to kill each other's wives. You don't understand what's at stake, Garrett hissed. Sarah's technology is worth billions, trillions potentially. We all could have benefited. Where is she? Alexander demanded. If I knew, do you think I'd still be here playing corporate games? Garrett laughed bitterly. She outsmarted all of us, but not for much longer. What does that mean? Garrett's phone chimed. His smile returned as he read the message. It means the game is changing. The twins aren't at your Brooklyn safe house anymore, Alexander. Ms. Flores received an urgent call from their mother, quite the convincing voice. Actress we hired. They're being transported to a more secure location. Ice filled Alexander's veins. If you hurt them, their insurance, nothing more, Garrett said dismissively. Cooperate. Help us find Sarah and the complete research, and your daughters will be returned unharmed. Alexander lunged forward, grabbing Garrett by his expensive lapels. Tell me where they are. Security guards burst in, responding to a silent alarm Garrett had triggered. Mr. Reid is having a breakdown, Garrett told them calmly. Escort him home to rest. As the guards led him out, Alexander locked eyes with Victor across the office floor. A nearly imperceptible nod passed between them before Alexander was ushered into the elevator. In the privacy of his car, Alexander's phone lit up with a message. From an unknown number. Riverside Warehouse. Midnight. Come alone. Beneath it was a photo of Lily and Rose, frightened but unharmed, holding a newspaper with today's date. The Riverside Warehouse stood abandoned on the edge of the industrial district, its weathered brick exterior revealing little of what waited inside. Alexander approached cautiously, the prototype chip secure in an inner pocket and a tracking device from Mia concealed in his watch. The main entrance was unlocked. Alexander stepped into darkness, the beam of his flashlight revealing empty space and graffiti-covered walls. Something felt wrong. Too easy, too quiet. "Hello?" His voice echoed through the vacant building. A side door creaked open, spilling dim light across the concrete floor. "In here!" called a familiar voice. Mia stood in a small office, surrounded by monitors displaying security camera feeds. "It's a trap," she said without preamble. "We intercepted their communications. They never brought the children here." Alexander's relief was quickly overshadowed by concern. "Then we're tracking multiple Nexus security teams. One is stationed at a facility on Long Island." Mia pulled up satellite imagery on a screen. "It's officially a research outpost, but our intelligence suggests it's where they've developed applications for Sarah's technology." "Is she there? The twins?" "Unknown, but it's our best lead." Mia handed him a worn leather journal. "This was left at one of our safe houses 2 years ago. It belonged to Sarah." Alexander opened the journal with trembling hands. Pages of technical notes, mathematical formulas, and personal entries filled with Sarah's distinctive handwriting. He flipped through until an entry from shortly before her disappearance caught his eye. "March 15th. G and the board rejected my proposal to limit QEP applications. They've already made deals with ND and possibly government actors. The prototype works too well. It can breach any encryption in seconds. I've modified it to require biometric authentication from both A and myself to activate fully. They don't know this failsafe exists. March 17th, surveillance increasing. He confirms board has authorized external security to protect me. They're watching A2. The yacht trip may be my only chance. March 20th, final preparations made. If something happens, the protocol is hidden where it all began, where we first created life together. Only A would understand. I pray someday he'll forgive me for what I must do." Alexander looked up, eyes burning. She knew they were coming for her. The yacht explosion wasn't their plan. It was hers. Her escape route. "Sarah was always steps ahead," Mia agreed. "That's why she's survived this long." "This entry about where it all began," Alexander said. "She's referring to our original lab at MIT, where we conceived the twins through IVF before they were born. Victor arrived as they were discussing strategy, bringing news from Reid Tech. Garrett has called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning," he reported. "He's moving to have you removed as CEO, citing mental health concerns." "He's consolidating power," Alexander realized. "Moving pieces into place for something big." "There's more," Victor continued. "Nexus Dynamics announced a major security breakthrough to be unveiled next week. They're claiming it will revolutionize data protection worldwide. They're going public with Sarah's technology," Alexander said grimly, "which means they either have her working for them or—" The unspoken alternative hung in the air. "We need to move quickly," Mia decided. "My team has identified 3 potential entry points to the Long Island facility. Security is heavy, but not impenetrable." Alexander studied the building schematics. "We'll need distraction, tech support, and a medical team on standby." "Already arranged," Mia assured him. "What about the children?" Victor asked. Alexander turned to the final pages of Sarah's journal, finding a series of coded notes that he recognized from their early days together. "She's left breadcrumbs," he said, hope rising in his chest. "This code, its coordinates, not for her location but for the twins. She anticipated they might be separated." As they decoded the location, another discovery emerged. A hidden message written in the margins of the journal using invisible ink, revealed only when Alexander held a page near the heat of a lamp. "If you're reading this, you've found the truth. Trust only EM and your heart. The children are our legacy, our future. Find us at the lighthouse when the storm passes. I never stopped loving you." Alexander closed the journal gently. "Tomorrow we move. First to secure the twins, then to find Sarah." "And if Garrett gets in the way?" Victor asked. Alexander's expression hardened. Then he'll learn why taking my family was his last mistake. Dawn found Alexander in his penthouse, preparing for the emergency board meeting. Despite the circumstances, appearances needed to be maintained. A tailored suit, polished shoes, the mask of corporate confidence. Victor arrived early, bringing coffee and security updates. Garrett has been busy overnight. He's convinced 3 board members to support your removal. Only 3? Alexander raised an eyebrow. He needs 5 for a majority. He's meeting with Margaret and Philip before the official session. I suspect he'll have his majority. Alexander adjusted his tie. I only need to buy time. How's our other operation proceeding? Mia's team is in position near the location from Sarah's coordinates. They've confirmed the twins are being held at a private residence in Connecticut, not the Long Island facility. And our contingency? Victor hesitated, placing his security badge on the counter. That's what I needed to discuss. Alexander examined the badge. The access log displayed entries to restricted areas at unusual hours, including the secure server room at 3 a.m. the previous night. You've been busy yourself, Alexander observed, voice carefully neutral. I've worked for you for 15 years, Victor said quietly. But there are things you don't know about me, like your connection to Nexus Dynamics. Victor didn't deny it. I was placed at Reid Tech as an observer when Sarah's research began showing promise. My reports were supposed to be information gathering only. Yet here we are, Alexander said coldly. My wife forced into hiding, my children kidnapped, and my company under attack. I didn't know about the children, Victor insisted, or that they planned to harm Sarah. When they staged her death, I was told she'd agreed to work for Nexus privately. And you believed that? Until recently. Victor looked genuinely troubled. The operation has evolved. Garrett has gone beyond corporate espionage to something more dangerous. He's brokering deals with military contractors, hostile foreign entities. Alexander studied the man he'd trusted for years. Why tell me this now? Because I have limits, Victor replied. Using children as leverage crosses a line I won't accept, and because, he hesitated, Sarah saved my sister's life. What? 3 years ago. My sister was fleeing an abusive husband with political connections. Somehow, Sarah found out and connected her with the underground. She disappeared, safely. I received proof of life last year. Alexander absorbed this revelation. So your loyalties are divided. We're divided, Victor corrected. Not anymore. Prove it, Alexander challenged. What's Garrett's real plan? The Long Island facility houses Sarah's complete research database. They've replicated her work, but can't activate the highest security functions without the prototype and biometric authorization. Hence the need for Sarah and me. Victor nodded. Once they have the twins secure as leverage, they plan to move Sarah to an international black site. The technology unveiling next week is only phase 1. And me? After today's board meeting, you'll be removed from the company and placed under medical supervision at a private facility. They'll extract your biometric data there. The implication was clear. Alexander wouldn't be leaving that facility alive. You realize, Alexander said, that if you're playing both sides, neither will survive this. I've made my choice, Victor said, reclaiming his badge. I can get you access to the Long Island facility. In return, I want my sister's new identity, protected when this is over. If we succeed, Alexander replied, you have my word. As they headed to Reid Tech Tower, Alexander received a message from Mia. Package located. Extraction team in place, awaiting your signal. The board members were already gathered when Alexander entered the conference room. Garrett looked momentarily surprised to see Victor at Alexander's side. Alexander, Garrett greeted with false concern. We're all worried about your well-being. Recent behaviors suggest you need time to focus on your health. How thoughtful, Alexander replied evenly. Before we begin, I'd like to propose an addition to today's agenda. This is a closed session with a specific purpose. Garrett objected. Alexander smiled thinly. I think the board will want to hear about Nexus dynamics, offshore accounts, and technology theft. Don't you, Garrett? The color drained from Garrett's face as Alexander took his seat at the head of the table. Let the meeting begin. The board meeting ended in chaos. Alexander presented evidence of Garrett's collusion with Nexus Dynamics, carefully edited to protect Victor's involvement. When confronted with financial records showing illicit payments, Garrett abandoned his composed facade. You have no idea what forces you're dealing with, he had snarled before storming out, 3 loyal board members following in his wake. Now, as evening approached, Alexander and Mia crouched in dense woods overlooking an elegant Connecticut estate. Security personnel patrolled the grounds, private contractors not Nexus employees. 6 guards visible, Mia whispered, lowering her binoculars. Probably more inside. Any sign of the twins? 2nd floor, east wing, bedroom with balcony. She handed him the binoculars. Blue curtains. Alexander focused on the indicated window. For a brief moment, a small face appeared. Rose or Lily, he couldn't tell from this distance. His heart ached. Extraction team is in position, Mia continued. We have a distraction ready. On your signal. Alexander nodded, determination hardening. His features. Do it. The next 15 minutes passed in a blur. A delivery truck approached the main gate, its driver arguing loudly with security. As guards converged to handle the situation, Alexander and Mia slipped onto the grounds through a section of fence disabled by Mia's team. They reached the east wing, undetected. A service entrance yielded to Mia's electronic lockpick, granting them access to a kitchen area. A startled staff member appeared, but Mia quickly subdued her with a sleep-inducing injection. Non-lethal, she assured Alexander. She'll wake with a headache, nothing more. They located the stairs, encountering a guard at the 2nd floor landing. Alexander distracted him while Mia approached from behind, applying another injection. They dragged the unconscious man into a closet. The bedroom with blue curtains was locked from the outside, a chilling detail that fueled Alexander's anger. Mia made quick work of the lock. Inside, Lily and Rose sat on a canopied bed, coloring in sketchbooks. They looked up in unison, eyes widening. Mr. Alexander, Lily whispered. We've come to take you somewhere safe, he said gently, kneeling before them. Where's Miss Flores? They took her away, Rose said, tears forming. They said Mama wanted us to stay here, but we know that's not true. Mama would never send mean people, Lily added firmly. Alexander noticed the drawing Rose was working on, a detailed sketch of a lighthouse perched on rocky cliffs, waves crashing below, the same lighthouse symbol from the subway token. That's beautiful, he said. Did your mother teach you to draw that? Rose nodded. It's where the big water is. Where? Mama took us before, may I? He gestured to the drawing. Rose handed it to him, and he carefully folded it into his pocket. We need to move, Mia urged from the doorway. The distraction won't last much longer. Alexander helped the girls put on shoes and light jackets. We have to be very quiet, like a game. Can you do that? They nodded solemnly. The journey back through the house proceeded smoothly until they reached the kitchen. A guard had discovered his unconscious colleague and raised the alarm. Shouts echoed from the front of the house. Change of plan, Mia decided. This way. She led them through a pantry to a service exit that opened onto a terrace. They were halfway, across the manicured lawn, when floodlights blazed to life, illuminating them in harsh white light. "Stop right there!" commanded a voice through a megaphone. Alexander pushed the twins behind him protectively. Mia drew a weapon from her jacket. "Backup plan," she muttered. "When I create a distraction, run for the trees. The extraction team will cover you." Before Alexander could respond, Ms. Flores emerged from the house, escorted by 2 guards. "Girls," she called. "It's okay, come back inside." The twins clutched Alexander's legs. "That's not Ms. Flores's voice," Lily whispered. "It sounds wrong." Alexander's blood ran cold as he realized the truth. The woman was an imposter, likely, using voice-altering technology. "Now!" Mia ordered, firing several shots into the floodlights. Darkness fell as Alexander scooped up both twins and ran for the tree line, gunfire erupting behind them. A bullet grazed his shoulder, but adrenaline numbed the pain. The extraction team emerged from cover, returning fire as they retreated into the forest. Safe in the back of a waiting vehicle minutes later, Alexander examined Rose's drawing more carefully. Written in childish script along the lighthouse beam was a single word: Montauk. The safe house in upstate New York was a rustic cabin surrounded by dense forest, its location known only to Mia's most trusted associates. Alexander watched the twins sleep, their small forms curled together like mirror images. The gravity of fatherhood, of responsibility for these innocent lives, pressed upon him with each gentle breath they took. His shoulder throbbed where the bullet had grazed him. Mia had cleaned and bandaged the wound, assuring him it was superficial. "You should rest," she advised, bringing him coffee as morning light filtered through the trees. "There's no time." Alexander showed her his tablet, where he'd been working through the night. "I have a plan to draw them out." On screen was a draft press release announcing Reid Tech's breakthrough in quantum encryption, a direct challenge to Nexus Dynamics' upcoming reveal. "You're poking the hornet's nest," Mia observed. "Precisely. Garrett and his backers have operated in shadows for years. It's time to force them into the light." Victor arrived mid-morning with supplies and news. "Garrett is in full damage control. The board is divided, but he still maintains influence through proxies." "And the prototype?" Alexander asked. "Secure in the location we discussed. Elizabeth Chen has arranged the MIT lab access you requested." "Good." Alexander finalized the press release, adding specific technical details that only someone with intimate knowledge of Sarah's work could include. "Send this to media outlets immediately." "It's a major risk," Victor warned. "You're essentially announcing that you have what they want, and that I know how to use it," Alexander added, "which makes me more valuable alive than dead." While the twins explored the cabin under Ms. Flores's watchful eye, the real Ms. Flores, rescued during the extraction, Alexander convened with his unlikely allies to refine their strategy. The lighthouse in Rose's drawing matches one near Montauk Point, Mia explained, showing satellite imagery. "There's a private research facility 2 miles inland, owned by a shell corporation we've linked to Nexus." "That's where they're holding Sarah," Alexander concluded. "Likely, but security will be extreme." Alexander's phone buzzed with news alerts. The press release had hit the wires, creating immediate market turbulence. Reid Tech stock jumped while Nexus Dynamics began a slide. Within the hour, his secure line rang. "Garrett." "Quite a stunt," his former friend said, voice tight with controlled fury. "The board wants an emergency session to discuss your announcement." "I thought I was removed for health reasons," Alexander replied coolly. "Circumstances change. The meeting is at 3. Your attendance is non-negotiable." The trap was obvious but unavoidable. "I'll be there." After ending the call, Alexander turned to Victor. He took the bait. "Now we accelerate the timeline." "The extraction team needs at least 24 hours to prepare for the Montauk facility," Mia objected. "We don't have 24 hours. Once I appear at Reid Tech, they'll make their move." Alexander studied the facility schematics. "We need a two-pronged approach. While I distract Garrett and the board, a smaller team infiltrates Montauk." "It's too risky," Victor argued. "You'd be walking into their hands, which is why I won't actually be there." Alexander smiled thinly. At least not physically. The plan came together rapidly. Elizabeth Chen would attend the board meeting as Alexander's proxy, armed with documented evidence of Garrett's malfeasance. Meanwhile, a holographic presentation system, Reid Tech's newest technology, would project Alexander's image, allowing him to participate remotely while actually heading to Montauk with Mia. "The twins," Miss Flores asked. A separate team will transport them to a secure location with Elizabeth afterward, Victor explained. We've arranged new identities as a precaution. As preparations continued, Alexander spent a quiet moment with his daughters, helping them pack the few belongings they had. Are we going to see Mama? Lily asked, her small face serious. I hope so, Alexander answered honestly. I'm doing everything I can to find her. Rose handed him another drawing, this one showing 4 stick figures holding hands, 2 tall, 2 small. Our family, she explained, for when we're all together. Alexander carefully folded the picture and placed it in his pocket next to the prototype chip. I'll keep it safe until then, he promised. Later, as they prepared to depart, Alexander's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Lighthouse keeper watches east at dawn. The storm breaks tonight. The message style was unmistakable. Somehow, Sarah knew they were coming. The journey to Montauk took 3 hours through back roads to avoid surveillance. Alexander sat in the back seat with the twins, who had insisted on coming despite his concerns. Their determination reminded him so much of Sarah that he couldn't refuse them. They might be our best chance at reaching her, Mia had pointed out. Sarah will have security protocols, emotional verification methods. The children could be the key. Rose's drawing had provided crucial details about the lighthouse and surrounding area. Alexander studied it alongside satellite imagery as their convoy of nondescript vehicles approached the Long Island coast. There's something about this drawing, he mused. The perspective is too precise for a child. She's drawing what she remembers, Lily explained, leaning against his arm. But Mama helped us practice. Alexander noticed faint lines in the cliff face below the lighthouse. What's this area here? The secret door, Rose said, matter-of-factly. For the boat. Mia exchanged a significant look with Alexander. A water access point, not on any of our intel. They established a base of operations in a rented beach house 3 miles from the lighthouse. While Mia's team prepared surveillance equipment, Alexander examined the twins' music box more carefully. You said there was a hidden compartment, he reminded them. Lily nodded. It only opens with the special song. Together, they sang Sarah's lullaby, while Alexander turned the key in a specific rhythm. A soft click revealed a false bottom in the box. Inside lay a small digital recording device. Alexander's hands trembled as he pressed play. If you're listening to this, it means you've found our daughters. Sarah's voice, slightly distorted but unmistakable, filled the room. Alexander closed his eyes, overwhelmed by emotions he'd suppressed for 5 years. I'm so sorry, Alexander, for everything. What I'm about to tell you will be difficult to believe, but I need you to listen carefully. The recording detailed how Sarah had discovered Garrett's connection to Nexus Dynamics while reviewing security protocols. She'd found evidence of data, theft, unauthorized access to her research, and communications with foreign entities willing to pay billions for her encryption breakthrough. When I confronted Garrett privately, hoping to resolve it internally, he made it clear this went beyond corporate espionage. The technology in the wrong hands could destabilize governments, crash financial markets, even compromise nuclear security. Systems. I couldn't let that happen. Sarah explained how she'd learned she was pregnant shortly after discovering the conspiracy. Twins, Alexander. Our babies from the fertility treatments we'd almost given up on. I couldn't tell you. They were already watching too closely. I knew they would use any leverage possible, including our children. The yacht explosion had been her creation, a desperate plan developed with help from Elizabeth Chen and an underground network of former intelligence operatives. While the world believed she had died, Sarah had escaped to begin a new life under a false identity, giving birth to the twins months later. I modified the prototype before leaving. It requires both our biometric signatures to activate fully, a fail-safe to ensure it couldn't be misused. I've hidden the complete research in the place where we first discussed having children. You'll remember. Her voice broke slightly. I've told the girls about you, how brilliant and kind their father is, how someday, when it's safe, we might be a family. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me for the pain I've caused you, but everything I've done has been to protect what matters most." The recording ended with coordinates, not for the lighthouse, but for a location several miles inland. "If something happens to me, this is where you'll find everything you need. Trust Mia, trust the underground. I've never stopped loving you, Alexander." Silence filled the room as the recording ended. The twins watched him anxiously. "Mama's in trouble, isn't she?" Lily asked. Alexander wiped moisture from his eyes. "Yes, but we're going to help her." Rose pointed to the coordinates written in the drawing's corner. "That's not where Mama is. That's where the bad people are." Alexander studied the numbers again, suddenly understanding. Sarah hadn't given him her location. She'd given him the location of Nexus Dynamics' secret research facility. She's giving us a chance to end this, he realized, once and for all. Night fell over the beach house, bringing with it a coastal storm. Rain lashed against windows while thunder rumbled offshore. The weather matched Alexander's turbulent emotions as he processed Sarah's revelations. The twins had fallen asleep on the sofa, exhausted from the day's journey. Alexander covered them with a blanket, studying their faces in the soft lamplight. His daughters. The thought still overwhelmed him. A mixture of joy, grief for lost years, and fierce protectiveness. Mia entered quietly, bringing coffee. "The team is analyzing the facility schematics based on the coordinates. We should have an infiltration plan by morning." "And the board meeting?" "In progress. Elizabeth reports Garrett is trying to maintain control, but several members are questioning his leadership after your press release." Alexander nodded absently, his focus still on the sleeping children. "It's a lot to absorb," Mia observed gently. 5 years, he murmured. 5 years of believing she was dead, of not knowing they existed. Sarah made an impossible choice to protect them, and you. "I understand her reasons," Alexander said, "but understanding doesn't erase the pain." He moved to the window, watching lightning illuminate the churning ocean. "I should have noticed something was wrong. She tried to tell me the research was dangerous, but I was too focused on corporate success. You couldn't have known the depths of the conspiracy." A notification pinged on Mia's tablet. Surveillance footage from the Nexus facility showing increased activity. Vehicles arriving. Equipment being moved. "They're accelerating their timeline," she noted with concern. "Whatever they're planning, it's happening soon." "Then so is our rescue operation," Alexander decided. "I want to leave at first light." Dawn brought clearer skies and a moment of calm before the mission. Alexander sat with the twins at breakfast, trying to prepare them for what might come. "Today we're going to try to find your mother," he explained. "But it might be dangerous." "We know," Lily said, surprising him with her composure. "Mama taught us about danger. She said if bad people ever came, we should hide and wait for the lighthouse keeper," Rose added. "Is that you?" Alexander smiled, sadly. "I think I am now." He reached into his pocket, producing 2 slender silver bracelets. "I got these for you. They're special. They have tracking devices inside, so if we get separated, I can always find you." The twins' eyes widened as he fastened the bracelets around their small wrists. "They're pretty," Lily whispered, turning her wrist to catch the light. "And they match," Rose added with delight. "Like us." "Exactly like you," Alexander agreed. "Unique but connected." Lily studied him with serious eyes. "Are you really our father?" The direct question caught him off guard. "Yes," he answered honestly, "though I didn't know until very recently." "Mama has your picture," Rose said. "She kisses it sometimes when she thinks we're sleeping." Alexander felt his throat tighten. "I've missed her very much." "She misses you too," Lily assured him. "She tells us stories about you." "What kind of stories?" Rose grinned. "About how you built a robot that made breakfast when you were just a kid. And how you danced with her on a rooftop when it was snowing," Lily added. Alexander remembered that night, their first anniversary, a surprise party on the Reid Tech Tower rooftop during an unexpected December snowfall. He'd never seen Sarah look more beautiful than she had with snowflakes catching in her dark hair. "Those are good memories," he said softly. "Will we make new memories?" Rose asked. "All together?" Alexander knelt before them, taking their small hands in his. "I promise to do everything in my power to make that happen." The twins exchanged glances, then simultaneously hugged him, a gesture so natural, yet so profound, that Alexander felt tears threaten. These children were part of him, part of Sarah, living connections to the love he thought he'd lost forever. "It's on time," Mia called from the doorway. "The reconnaissance team reports movement at the lighthouse." Alexander stood, still holding his daughter's hands. "Then let's go bring your mother home." The lighthouse stood sentinel on Montauk's rocky coast, its white tower stark against the morning sky. Alexander's team established surveillance from a wooded area nearby, monitoring activity through high-powered optics. 2 guards at the main entrance, reported one of Mia's operatives. Another patrolling the perimeter, standard private security, not military. "Too light for a high-value containment," Mia observed. "Either they're very confident or Sarah isn't there." Alexander finished. "The facility coordinates from the recording. What's happening there?" Another operative brought up satellite imagery on a tablet. "Heavy activity, transport vehicles, armed personnel. Looks like they're preparing to move something or someone." Victor approached, phone in hand. "Elizabeth just called. The board meeting has ended. Garrett managed to maintain control, but just barely. He's disappeared from Reid Tech Tower." "He's coming here," Alexander realized. The press release forced his hand. They're accelerating whatever they had planned. Victor hesitated. "There's something else you need to see." He produced a tablet containing an encrypted email chain. Communications between Garrett and executives at Nexus Dynamics dating back 6 years, long before Sarah's disappearance. "I accessed Garrett's private server," Victor explained. "These were buried under layers of security." Alexander scrolled through the messages, his expression darkening with each revelation. The conspiracy was more extensive than they had imagined. Garrett hadn't merely stumbled upon Sarah's research. He had been placed at Reid Tech specifically to monitor and eventually acquire it. "He was never my friend," Alexander said quietly. "Everything, our entire relationship, was fabricated to gain access to our work. One email exchange particularly chilled him, from G. Morgan, secureserver.net, to operative 117, nexusdyn.com, subject, contingency planning. The prototype failsafe requires both targets for full activation. SR remains priority acquisition. AR is expendable post-extraction of necessary biometrics. The board incident provides perfect cover for AR's breakdown and subsequent treatment. Timeline accelerated, 48 hours to completion. Attached, transfer. Protocols for package Lighthouse to International Site B. Reply, authorization granted. Extraction team en route. Ensure no witnesses. The technology must be secured before public announcement. The timestamp showed the email had been sent yesterday, shortly after Alexander's press release. They were always going to eliminate me, Alexander realized, once they had what they needed. And now they're planning to move Sarah internationally, Mia added grimly. We're running out of time. Victor looked deeply troubled. Alexander, there's one more thing. These emails mention a mole in Mia's organization, someone who's been feeding them information. Tension immediately filled the air. Mia's team exchanged wary glances. Who? She demanded. It doesn't say, Victor replied. Just references a reliable asset within the underground. Alexander studied Victor's expression. You've been working both sides for years. Why should we trust you now? Because I've given you everything, Victor said evenly. And because of this. He removed a concealed earpiece and placed it on the table. Garrett has been listening to everything through this since the board meeting. I've been feeding him misinformation, telling him we're focusing on the Nexus facility while preparing to move on the lighthouse. A double cross, Mia said, eyes narrowing. Triple, technically, Victor corrected. I've been playing both sides. Yes, originally for Nexus, then as a double agent when I realized what they were planning. But my sister's safety has always been my true priority. And now? Alexander challenged. Now I want to stop Garrett before he sells this technology to people who will use it to hurt countless others, Victor said firmly, including my sister, wherever she is. Alexander considered this, then made a decision. We proceed as planned, but with modifications. Mia, divide your team. Half maintain surveillance here, half prepare to move on the Nexus facility. And the mole? She asked. We feed different information to different team members, Alexander decided. See which details reach Garrett. The twins, who had been sitting quietly with Miss Flores, approached Alexander. Mama's not in the lighthouse, Lily said confidently. How do you know? Alexander asked gently. Rose pointed to the sea. Because the boat is missing. Alexander followed her gesture to a small dock, partially hidden among the rocks. There was indeed a space where a boat should have been. The secret door, he remembered from Rose's drawing. It's an escape route. Then where would she go? Mia wondered. Alexander studied the coastline, thinking like Sarah. To the one place they wouldn't expect. Right into the heart of their operation. Understanding dawned on Victor's face. The Nexus facility. Exactly, Alexander confirmed. She's not running from them, she's hunting them. Darkness provided cover as Alexander, Victor, and Mia approached the Nexus research facility, a low, modernist structure nestled in a wooded area inland from the coast. Motion sensors and security cameras created a digital perimeter that would typically be impenetrable. I've looped their surveillance feed, Victor said, checking his tablet. We have approximately 12 minutes before their system forces a reset. Alexander studied the building's floor plans, detailed schematics obtained through Elizabeth Chen's connections with the architectural firm that had designed the facility. 3 access points showed vulnerability: a loading dock, a roof ventilation system, and an emergency exit on the eastern side. Sarah would know these weaknesses too, Alexander noted. If she's infiltrating, she'd use the ventilation system, minimal security, direct access to the central server room. That's our entry point then, Mia decided. My team will create a distraction at the loading dock while we access the roof. They moved like shadows through the tree line. Alexander had left the twins with Miss Flores and 2 of Mia's most trusted operatives at a secondary location miles away. The tracking bracelets showed their position secure. The loading dock distraction worked perfectly. A minor explosion in a dumpster drew security personnel to the western side of the building. Mia led Alexander and Victor to a maintenance ladder that accessed the roof. 8 minutes remaining on the security loop, Victor warned, as they reached the ventilation intake. The shaft was narrow but navigable. They descended in silence, emerging into a utility corridor bathed in emergency lighting. Alexander consulted the floor plans. Server room should be 2 junctions east, he whispered. They encountered 1 guard, whom Mia neutralized with a sleep. A dart before he could raise an alarm. The server room door featured a biometric lock, exactly as the plans had indicated. I can't bypass this, Victor admitted after examining the security panel. Alexander removed the prototype chip from his pocket. We don't need to bypass it. Sarah designed this technology. It's responding to similar security architecture. He placed the chip against the panel. After a moment, the lock disengaged with a soft click. The server room was a cathedral of technology. Row upon row of humming equipment, blinking lights reflecting off polished floors. But it was empty of people. She's not here, Mia observed, scanning the room. But she was, Alexander replied, pointing to a workstation where a terminal remained. Active. On screen was a file directory labeled Capmaster. She's downloading her research, Victor realized. A soft noise from an adjacent room drew their attention. Alexander approached cautiously, pushing open the door to reveal a laboratory space. Complex equipment filled the room, centered around what appeared to be a containment unit with medical monitoring devices, and there, slumped in a chair beside the unit, was Sarah. Alexander rushed forward, heart pounding. She was pale, thinner than he remembered, dark circles beneath her eyes suggesting exhaustion, but alive, gloriously alive. "Sarah," he whispered, gently touching her face. Her eyes fluttered open, focusing slowly. "Alexander, is it really you?" "It's me," he confirmed, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "We found you." Recognition gave way to alarm. "The girls—" "Safe," he assured her. "I found them. They're protected." Relief washed over her face, followed quickly by urgency. "We need to leave. Garrett is coming. They're moving everything tonight. Can you walk?" Mia asked, checking the corridor. Sarah nodded, allowing Alexander to help her stand. "I've been accessing their systems, downloading evidence, corrupting their copies of my research." "The prototype?" Alexander asked. She smiled weakly. "You brought it, didn't you? I knew you would understand my message." "Security breach in Sector 3, announced a computerized voice suddenly. "Lockdown initiating in 60 seconds. "They've detected the loop failure," Victor warned. "We need another exit strategy." Sarah pointed to the floor plans. "Maintenance tunnel, sub-level 2. It connects to the drainage system that runs to the coast." As alarms blared, they made their way through increasingly chaotic corridors. Staff evacuated in the opposite direction, believing the emergency to be a system malfunction rather than an infiltration. They reached the access point for the maintenance tunnel just as armed security forces entered the corridor behind them. "Go!" Victor shouted, positioning himself to provide cover. "I'll hold them off." "Victor," Alexander began. "This is my choice," Victor insisted. "Find your family. Stop Garrett." As gunfire erupted behind them, Alexander helped Sarah into the narrow tunnel, Mia following close behind. The passage was dark and damp, lit only by their flashlights as they pushed forward. "The twins," Sarah said between labored breaths. "Tell me about them." "They're incredible," Alexander replied, supporting her weight. "Strong, brave, just like their mother. They never stopped believing you'd come back." Tears streaked Sarah's dirty face. "And you? Can you ever forgive me?" Alexander's answer was interrupted by the sound of rushing water ahead and approaching footsteps behind. The drainage tunnel emerged on a deserted stretch of coastline, a mile from the Nexus facility. Mia had positioned an extraction team nearby, and within minutes they were speeding away in an unmarked vehicle. "Victor?" Mia asked as they drove. Alexander shook his head. "No communication. We have to assume he's been captured." Sarah leaned against Alexander in the back seat, her body trembling with exhaustion. 5 years of separation dissolved in her presence. The familiar scent of her hair, the curve of her jaw, the determined set of her shoulders, even in weakness. "I never thought I'd see you again," she whispered. "Not like this." "I never stopped looking," he replied. "Not really. Even when I thought you were gone, something in me kept searching." Mia's phone chimed with a secure message. "The girls are at the rendezvous point," she reported. "All clear." Sarah straightened, new energy flooding her features. "How far?" 20 minutes. The safe house was a modest beach cottage, isolated enough for security, yet accessible for a quick departure if needed. As their vehicle approached, the front door burst open. 2 small figures raced down the steps, their faces illuminated by porch lights. "Mama!" they cried in unison. Sarah flung open the car door before it had fully stopped, stumbling toward her daughters with desperate joy. They collided in a tangle of embraces, tears, and laughter, a reunion 5 years in the making. Alexander watched from a respectful distance, allowing them their moment. The sight of his family together, a family he hadn't known existed mere days ago, filled him with wonder and fierce protectiveness. "Come," Sarah called to him, extending her hand. "Please." He joined their circle, kneeling to embrace all three at once. Lily and Rose wrapped their arms around both parents, completing a connection that transcended the years of separation. Inside the cottage, as Mia's team secured the perimeter, Sarah bathed and changed into clean clothes. The twins refused to leave her side even for a moment. They sat together on a worn sofa, the girls tucked against their mother as she gently stroked their hair. "You found the music box," she said, noticing it on a nearby table. "And your message," Alexander confirmed, though I almost didn't believe it was possible. Sarah's eyes filled with regret. "I wanted to contact you so many times, but every attempt risked exposing us all. Miss Flores told me about the pregnancy, how you discovered it just as you uncovered the conspiracy. The timing was cruel," Sarah admitted. "Our miracle babies, after years of trying, arriving just when everything else fell apart. The twins had fallen asleep, exhausted by emotion and excitement." Alexander covered them with a blanket. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "Garrett won't stop," Sarah replied. "The prototype is too valuable, and with the public announcement scheduled, they're desperate to have working technology to demonstrate. But without you and the prototype, they have partial backups of my research, enough to create a flawed version, but one that could still be immensely dangerous in the wrong hands." Mia entered with a tablet displaying news reports. "Nexus Dynamics has announced an emergency press conference for tomorrow morning. They're moving forward despite tonight's setback." "And Victor?" Alexander asked. "No word yet. Our operatives report heightened security at the facility, but no sign of prisoner transport." Sarah reached for Alexander's hand. "There's something you should know about Victor. He's been helping me for the past year." "What?" "After I helped his sister disappear, he contacted me through the underground. He's been feeding me information about Garrett's plans, helping me stay one step ahead." Alexander processed this revelation. "Then his capture may have been part of his plan," Mia suggested, "a final play from the inside." As they discussed strategy for the coming day, Ms. Flores approached with a digital camera. "The girls asked for this earlier," she explained. "They wanted to be ready when you were all together." Sarah smiled tiredly. "Our first family photo." They arranged themselves on the sofa, the sleeping twins between them. Despite the circumstances, the danger still looming, the years lost, the uncertain future, there was something profoundly right about the moment. The camera flashed, capturing an image that would become their most treasured possession. A family fractured by circumstance, but united by love, finally together against all odds. Later, as Sarah slept with the twins beside her, Alexander studied the photograph on the camera's display. 5 years of emptiness had been filled in an instant. Whatever came tomorrow, he would protect them. With everything he had, his family, his reason for fighting. Dawn brought strategic preparations. While the twins remained at the safe house with Ms. Flores and 2 guards, Alexander, Sarah, and Mia developed their countermove against Garrett's impending press conference. The announcement is scheduled for 10 a.m. at Nexus headquarters in Manhattan, Mia reported. "Our intelligence suggests Garrett will personally demonstrate the technology. With a flawed version," Sarah added, "but the public won't know the difference." Alexander studied the prototype chip. "Can we disable their system remotely?" "Not effectively," Sarah replied, "but we can expose them before they complete the demonstration." From her pocket, she produced a micro SD card smaller than a fingernail. "This contains everything. Documented evidence of corporate espionage, illegal weapons applications, communications with hostile foreign entities. I've spent 5 years gathering it." "We need to get this to the press before the conference," Alexander said. "Not just the press," Sarah countered. "We need to broadcast it during their own event, use their platform against them." Their plan formed quickly. Alexander would attend the press conference openly, creating a distraction that would allow Mia's team to access the facility's broadcast system. Meanwhile, Sarah would remain nearby, ready to provide technical support. If needed. It's too dangerous for you to be there, Alexander objected. Sarah's expression hardened. They stole 5 years of my life, Alexander. Separated me from you, forced me to raise our children in hiding. I won't miss seeing Garrett's face when it all comes crashing down. As they prepared to depart, Sarah's secure phone received an encrypted message. Package secure. Like Bishop moves at opening bell, White Knight ready. Victor, she explained. He's alive and in position. The Nexus Dynamics headquarters occupied a gleaming skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. Press and technology industry representatives gathered. In the main auditorium, where a stage had been set with dramatic lighting and multiple presentation screens, Alexander arrived openly, causing an immediate stir. Security personnel approached, but stopped short of removing him, uncertain of their authority given his public profile. From a service entrance, Mia's team infiltrated the building's technical infrastructure. Sarah waited in a vacant office 1 floor below, maintaining communication through encrypted channels. At precisely 10 a.m., Garrett Morgan took the stage to enthusiastic applause. He appeared confident, polished in an expensive suit, showing no sign of the previous night's chaos. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, today marks a revolutionary moment in data security. Nexus Dynamics is proud to unveil the quantum encryption protocol, technology that will redefine privacy in the digital age. Alexander moved purposefully toward the stage. Security tensed, but Garrett waved them back with a smile. Ah, Alexander. Reid himself has joined us, he announced smoothly. Perfect timing to witness the culmination of research his company could never fully develop. Interesting claim, Alexander replied, voice carrying through the auditorium. Especially since the technology you're about to demonstrate was stolen from Sarah Reid. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Garrett's smile tightened. Sarah Reid tragically died 5 years ago. Her preliminary work provided a foundation, certainly, but Nexus has developed it far beyond her initial concepts. Is that so? Alexander challenged. Then you won't mind if I ask a few technical questions about the implementation? As Alexander engaged Garrett in increasingly technical dialogue, questions only someone intimately familiar with Sarah's research could pose. Mia's team completed their infiltration of the broadcast system. We're in, came Sarah's voice through Alexander's concealed earpiece. Victor has given us access to their main server, initiating upload now. Garrett grew visibly uncomfortable as Alexander's questions became more pointed. Enough theatrics, he snapped. Let me demonstrate the technology's capabilities. He gestured to his technical team to begin the presentation. The main screens flickered, but instead of the planned demonstration, they displayed internal Nexus communications, financial transactions, and video recordings of Garrett himself, discussing plans to weaponize the encryption protocol. What is this? Garrett demanded, face draining of color. Shut it down. His technicians worked frantically at their consoles, but the broadcast continued uninterrupted. You're finished, Garrett, Alexander stated calmly. Every word, every illegal transaction, every threat, it's all being transmitted live to every major news outlet. Security forces burst into the auditorium, not Nexus personnel, but federal agents. Among them stood Victor, alongside Elizabeth. Chen Garrett Morgan, announced the lead agent. You're under arrest for industrial espionage, conspiracy, and numerous violations of national security protocols. As Garrett was led away in handcuffs, the auditorium doors opened once more. Sarah entered, head held high despite 5 years in hiding. Alexander moved to her side, taking her hand as cameras flashed around them. It's over, he said softly. Not quite, she replied, squeezing his hand. Now we begin again. 3 months after Garrett's arrest, autumn painted the Berkshire countryside in brilliant hues of gold and crimson. Alexander stood on the porch of a restored farmhouse, watching as Lily and Rose chased fallen leaves across the expansive yard. Their laughter carried on the crisp breeze, a sound he never tired of hearing. Sarah emerged from the house, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "The moving truck just left. That's the last of it." Alexander turned, taking in her appearance. The haunted look that had shadowed her eyes for so long had finally begun to fade. Her face had filled out, healthy color returning to her cheeks. The Sarah he remembered was gradually returning. "Hard to believe it's really over," he said, holding her close. The aftermath of the Nexus scandal had been chaotic, but ultimately vindicating. Garrett and 3 other Reid Tech board members faced federal charges for conspiracy, corporate espionage, and attempted kidnapping. Nexus Dynamics had collapsed under regulatory scrutiny and shareholder lawsuits. Alexander had stepped down as CEO of Reid Tech, appointing Elizabeth Chen as his successor, while he remained as a technical advisor. The company was being restructured around ethical applications of Sarah's encryption technology, systems to protect privacy rather than exploit vulnerabilities. "I have something for you," Alexander said, reaching into his pocket. He produced a set of keys attached to a hand-carved wooden lighthouse keychain. "Welcome home." Sarah accepted the keys with misty eyes. "I never thought we'd have this again. A real home, without looking over our shoulders." "The deed is in all our names," Alexander explained. "Yours, mine, and the girls. No corporate entities, no trusts, no hiding, just our family." Inside, the farmhouse was warm and inviting. Open spaces filled with natural light, comfortable furniture, walls already adorned with the twins' artwork. A stark contrast to Alexander's former sterile penthouse and Sarah's series of temporary safe houses. Ms. Flores had chosen to stay with them, occupying a guest cottage on the property. Her bond with the twins remained strong, and she had become family in every way that mattered. "Victor called this morning," Sarah mentioned as they prepared lunch. "The immunity deal is finalized. In exchange for his testimony, all charges have been dropped. Where will he go now? He's been offered a position with a cybersecurity firm in Europe. Fresh start, new identity, and his sister," Sarah smiled. "They're reconnecting, slowly, carefully, but it's happening." The twins burst into the kitchen, cheeks flushed from play. "Can we call Aunt Mia?" Lily asked. "We want to show her our new treehouse." "After lunch," Alexander promised. Mia had become Aunt Mia almost immediately, her protective nature extending naturally to the children she'd helped rescue. That evening, as the family gathered in the living room, Sarah brought out her old journal. "I think it's time to start a new one," she said, setting a blank book beside it. "The old story is complete." "Not complete," Alexander corrected gently. "Just one chapter ending and another beginning." They sat together, the twins cuddled between them as Sarah began to play their lullaby on a piano they'd placed by the window. Alexander watched his family, still marveling at the miracle of having them in his life after believing for so long that he had lost everything. The prototype chip had been secured in a specialized vault, its complete research protected under international oversight. Sarah's technology would help protect vulnerable systems worldwide, just as she had always intended. Outside, twilight settled over their new home. No surveillance teams monitored the perimeter. No threats lurked in shadows. For the first time in 5 years, they were truly free. Later, after the twins were asleep, Alexander and Sarah stood on the porch under a canopy of stars. "Any regrets?" he asked. "About leaving the corporate world behind?" Sarah shook her head. "I learned the hard way what truly matters. It was never about technological breakthroughs or market dominance." "What was it about then?" She took his hand, leading him back inside to where their daughters slept peacefully. "This. Always this." Alexander understood completely as he gazed at Lily and Rose. The tech empire he'd built, the wealth he'd accumulated, the power he'd wielded, none of it compared to the simple miracle of family. He closed the door softly, following Sarah to their room. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new opportunities to build the life they had almost lost. But tonight, finally, they were home.